bad.
What's up? Another episode of Ripple Effect Podcast. Of course, I'm your host, Rika the Variance, also known as Ricky Variance, and a great episode for you today. Today we have returning guest, one of my favorites, also I'm sure one of your favorites. A lot of people love when she's on because we talk about everything and anything, and this is no different. Today we have Dr. Jessica Rose. Some of you guys might remember, but I got hooked up with her by Dr. James Lyons Wheeler during the COVID lockdowns because she was using her expertise to analyze the VAR system and was one of the many experts I had on to really push back against the mainstream narrative during the lockdowns and the enforcement of the COVID vaccine. What I learned quickly was Jessica, much like myself, has a curse of curiosity. She is into so many different topics and is willing to go down so many different rabbit holes and can talk about everything and anything and has such interesting takes on so many of the things we discuss in this podcast. We did have to cut the podcast a bit short, and we felt like a lot of things we wanted to discuss was still undiscussed and wanted to save it for a part 2. So the following day, we did a part 2 of the Ripple Effect podcast with Dr. Jessica Rose. Both parts are drastically different and talk about drastically different topics. And I will warn you, as you guys know, Jessica lives in Israel, so it's more convenient to do early shows for her, early shows in regards to my time. So it was a early Sunday morning show after a late night of whiskey and cigars with some friends. So I did sound a little tired or maybe even hungover. I wasn't really hungover. I just felt like cognitively I wasn't firing on all cylinders right from the get-go. But as the show continues, I start feeling more like myself. And honestly, I'm sure many of you guys don't hate the fact that I do less talking in this podcast because as a energetic person and somebody who really enjoys sharing ideas, sometimes I can dominate the podcast and the discussion, but I am conscious of that and I do my best to try to correct that anytime I catch myself. Either way, another amazing conversation with Dr. Jessica Rose. You're really going to enjoy this, and you're going to enjoy part 2, which we get into how she landed in Israel, why she's there, and some previously unshared interesting tidbits about her journey. But of course, I have to remind you guys, before we get into this amazing conversation, I have to remind you that this is a value for value show. If you guys get any value out of the discussions I bring to you, obviously I spend a lot of time putting together my shows. The Ripple Effect podcast, I contribute a lot to the Union of the Unwanted. These are 2 amazing shows I'm really passionate about. And if you guys can help get the word out there by sharing, reviewing, thumbs up, subscribe to the shows on all the platforms we're on, and we're on a bunch of them: YouTube, Rumble, iTunes, Spotify, just about all the main platforms and many of the alternative platforms. That helps with the algorithms picking up on the show and hopefully eventually suggesting the show. And that help goes a long way because on Spotify, for some reason, I'm still shadow banned. I can't find my podcast on my own Spotify account, and many other people who listen to the show and subscribe to the show and listen to the show on a regular basis, for some reason, when they go to their podcasts on Spotify, the Ripple Effect podcast doesn't come up like they do the other shows they listen to. So it's weird. I don't know what's going on. I don't want to assume that it's because of controversial topics or whatnot, but there's a very good chance that's probably the case. So any help to fight against censorship like that will very much be appreciated. And then, of course, if you can financially support the show, as you guys know, there's not a whole lot of money in podcasting, very little, and there is a lot of investment in regards to bandwidth, running a website, all these type of other expenses, equipment, of course. All these expenses will be much easier to deal with if you guys can contribute something. Of course, like I said, if you can't financially contribute, no big deal. But if you can, if you're in a good financial situation, please consider sending a one-time donation via Venmo or PayPal. You can also support us monthly on Patreon. You can check out our merch store, and the Ripple Effect Podcast merch.com is the URL to go directly to the merch store. I've had some people reach out and ask me where can they get the Ripple Effect Podcast Hulk Smash t-shirt. I do always tell you guys where you can get the merch in the intro, but maybe some of you guys fast forward the intro. So let me just emphasize, if you are listening, the Ripple Effect Podcast merch.com, that will take you directly to the merch store. But you can also find a link to the merch store on my website, therippleeffectpodcast.com or rickyverandas.com. Both URLs will take you to the same website where you can find all these links and much more. There's also a very good chance wherever you're listening or watching the Ripple Effect Podcast, links to the merch store will be in the show description. So scroll down, look for the Ripple Effect Podcast merch, and you'll be able to click on it and check out the hoodies, t-shirts, tank tops, hats, all the cool mugs and logos we have. And it's a great way of getting some cool designs, some cool merch, and also supporting the Ripple Effect Podcast. And of course, we have a couple sponsors, Content Safe, Matt from Content Safe, syncs all my video channels together. He also runs my website. So if you're a podcaster, streamer, any type of content creator, and these seem like services you're interested in, check out Matt from Content Safe. Let him know you're a listener to Ripple Effect Podcast, and he'll definitely hook you up. And then, of course, the last sponsor is Opus Clips. If you make content and you want an easy way of creating viral clips, check out Opus Clips by using the link in the show description or on my website so you can help the Ripple Effect Podcast and get access to the strongest AI clip creator online. You can put in a URL or you can upload any video and it will magically make 30, 40 viral clips. It'll rate them from how viral they would be or how trending the topics are. And you can add music, you can add AI B-roll. It's an amazing, powerful tool. So definitely check out Opus Clips by using the link in the show description or on my website to help make viral videos today. That's it, guys. Enjoy this amazing part 1 conversation with Dr. Jessica Rose. Part 2 will be released soon after this one. So keep a lookout, and I'll talk to you guys in the next one. Peace.
And you'll probably emphatically agree with me. It only matters what you do every day. Like, I saw a little video from some guy, it's Denny something. It was like a clip that Rogan brought up on one of his things. And he said it was about bread, the difference between bread and in like the Mediterranean, for example, in Europe versus what you get, which is not bread in North America. And it's just wild. You know, everyone thinks they have a gluten allergy and they lactose intolerant. And it's like, no, you're probably poison intolerant, which is why, you know, you're reacting this way. Bread should have like 3 ingredients. And he goes through this list of things that have, and it's slow, right? You know, first they do this and then they bleach it and then they add preservatives and then they add this and something bromate. And it's like, people just aren't aware that it's crazy that it's like this. Like, sunscreens shouldn't be able to give you cancer. Chemical sunscreens actually burn your skin. I am living proof of that. Like, long time ago, it was the stupidest thing I've ever done in my life. I got a chemical peel to try and clear up this darkening that I got. Okay, I'll tell you the whole story. It's one of the worst things I ever did in my life. So some of us of Mediterranean descent or whatever have dark hair. And some of us have like dark hair on the upper lip. A lot of women have this thing. So I was one of them. And in the summertime, it was great because it would go all blondie. But then in the fall and the winter, maybe it was a little dark. And, you're a woman and you get kind of like, sensitive about it. So I was meeting this person that I had a crush on. So I waxed my upper lip. And then I went out in the sun, the hot Mediterranean sun, without thinking about it. And what happened was, and this is a lesson for all of you watching this, never do this. I basically got a tattoo on my upper lip. It was like the damage done to my epithelial cells, I suppose, or just the upper layer of my skin, caused the UV rays to like super penetrate or something, and I was like tattooed. So I looked like I had a mustache, and it was like it was just it wouldn't go away. I was so mortified. So I decided to get this chemical peel to try and, you know, get rid of a layer of skin and refresh and everything. And so the guy put it all over my face, of course. And another, of course, is I paid $1,000 of my money for this. Um, and it took off, like what a chemical peel does is it takes off like a superficial layer of skin cells and it makes you look really beautiful after it heals, technically. But if you live in a hot, sunny place and you're going out in the sun all the time, and you're a surfer or whatever, you absolutely need to wear a physical sunblock. And this guy who called himself a dermatologist who literally ruined my skin, didn't tell me this because he probably didn't know. He said, wear a sunscreen. And at the time, because I wasn't educated on any of this, I thought a chemical sunscreen was fine. I thought a 50, however the units are, 50 sunscreen UVA, UVB product was going to be perfectly fine to protect my sun. In any case, I don't know why I'm telling this whole story. Maybe I need therapy. Talk therapy. So I wore like a hat and I protected my skin. I coated this crap on my skin. And what happened was because it was a chemical sunscreen and the active ingredients, which do burn your skin, this is all like known, um, caused me to get the worst case of hyperpigmentation you can probably get. So hyperpigmentation is when your melanin starts overgrowing in blotchy, spotty places. So it was worse than it was before. And this was a long time ago, but ever since then, I mean, besides being completely mortified and not being able to do anything except wear this blotchy brown spotted mask for the rest of my life, because it's pretty permanent. I learned about physical sunscreen, which zinc sunscreens are. So the moral of the story is, you can learn a lesson from my horrible experience. If you're a surfer, and you want to actually reduce, the amount of, let's say, potential burning to your skin, because sometimes you can be out there for a long time. And if you're in Australia, the UV is like really high. So even for your nose, you have to wear zinc. You can even use zinc oxide, like this stuff that you put on babies' bottoms for rashes. It works fine. Um, I use a specific product. It costs a fortune, and I use it like, on my nose and my cheeks and here, like just to kind of keep everything balanced. Um, but yeah, it's crazy. Like I had to go through this entire thing just to learn that the only thing that you should ever put on your skin for protection from overexposure, that is if you're outside in the hot sun for hours and hours as a surfer with the sun reflecting off the water, yet just don't go anywhere near what they call a chemical sunscreen. It's a disaster waiting to happen. And the cancer part of that is, I mean, it makes sense to me. The number of chemicals, the types of chemicals, the largest organ of your body, everyday use. People put it on babies. I mean, when I see people spraying that shit that comes in a bottle on babies, I can't even walk by. I can't even breathe it. And I'm like, oh man, like all I want to do is go up to that mom and say, don't spray that on your baby. But I don't have the right to do that. So, there's my hyperpigmentation story. Thanks for listening.
Well, it's funny, like, what's the big deal about getting burnt? Like, back in the day, we used to get like burnt from time to time, like your skin peeled, you moved on. Like, now it's like everybody's like petrified of getting,
That's a great point.
right? I mean, I just remember growing up, like, we all got burnt. The first time you went to the beach in the summer, you get burnt, your skin peeled, you moved on. That was like kind of just the process. And now it's like nobody wants to get burnt. Everybody puts this stuff on this the first time you get any strong sunlight at all in the summer. You're putting this stuff on, and what you're doing, like I said, you're suppressing yourself of the vitamin D that's essential. And like I always tell people, I'm like, I love the sun. I hate the cold, love the sun. I mean, I will take 120 degree humid weather over cold all day. And everything in the world requires sunlight for life. Like, you just feel better, you have more energy, your mood changes. It just, I spend as much time as possible out in the sun for our small construction company business that the family owns. I spend a lot of time in the office, but I'll try to, like, in the morning, do as much as I can. If I'm in the office for a full day, I'll do as much as I can, or as much as I have to do on a desktop. I'll do it. Anything that I have to print out or whatever, and then I'll save everything that can be done on a laptop afterwards. And then I'll go and I'll sit on a laptop out in the sun, and I'll just finish all my other work. And sometimes my mother's like, "You're crazy. What are you doing sitting out there?" She's like, "Why don't you go in the shade?" And I'm like, "No, I love it." I'm like, I absolutely love being out in the sun. I love detoxing. I love the sweat. I love,
The sweat.
yeah. I mean, you
Mm.
just feel better. It's because we're talking a little bit about getting chemicals into your body. One of the best ways of getting chemicals out of your body is sweating. That it's the strongest way of detoxing. So, yeah, I think that's why athletes really feel great when they get that great workout in, where your pores open up. You feel like you just sweat out a pound of sweat, and it's not just the hydration that makes you feel better. It's all the chemicals and everything that gets out. I mean, that's why if you do a lot of heavy drinking, then the next day, you go play sports or you go to the gym, you feel like you're sweating it out because you really are, and it's making you feel
And you
better.
smell.
Yeah, you smell like whatever the hell you've been drinking. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. I'm actually playing soccer tonight, and I did a little too much drinking yesterday at a birthday party. But it's I'm looking forward to that feeling of you sweat it out, and then all of a sudden you just feel fresh. You feel better, and it's yeah, it's so essential. There's so much about our way of life that is unnatural,
Yeah.
completely incorrect, and really, it just go back and look at our ancestors. There's a new documentary which has like the worst title ever because it's not really distinct, and when you're Google searching it, it's called Animal. It's just called Animal period, with an actual period. And it's a dumb title because I mean, when I was first looking for it, I put an animal documentary, and of course, what did I get on Google? A bunch of animal documentaries. I got like, oh, want to learn about cheetahs, and what? I'm like, where the frick is this documentary? And it's a documentary about the carnivore diet, but it goes also into the history of what humans ate. It has anthropologists, has historians, has all these people kind of dissecting what humans have ate, and then it goes into the whole story of how there's this spike in the size of the human brain around the time that we started consuming more proteins and animal products and whatnot. So it's fascinating, and when you watch documentaries like that, when you do that, even dietary research, you find out like the closer we are to our ancestors in regards to way of life, eating, living, being outside, moving, the happier and healthier we are.
Social gathering around fires. God, I miss that. I haven't done that in a long time. Um,
I smoke cigars, and I remember reading an article about how some guy or cigar reviewer or whatever was writing an article about the pleasures of smoking a cigar, and he believed there was a link between, like you were just saying, like just generations of people who just used to sit around fires and watch the smoke, that he thinks that we still have that in us, and that enjoyment of like relaxing and watching the smoke, and he thinks that's one of the pleasures in smoking cigars, that it comes from that, from sitting around a fire. And I'm like, it's funny because I remember reading that, and I caught myself like tons of times afterwards, just like smoking a cigar, just watching the smoke kind of slowly fade into the air and into the sky, and I'm like, wow, this is so relaxing, and it really is kind of recreating that experience of sitting around a fire with loved ones and or people part of your community or tribe, and just enjoying the simple things of conversation, food, because even eating, I think, is
Or
in
silence.
or silence. Yeah.
Yeah, no, totally, man. Smoke whirls are like physics. Water whirls too. Um, yeah, the shapes can actually make out of smoke when you exhale are pretty neat too. But yeah, how many people like just do nothing intentionally, like at least once every day? Um, and probably that whatever that number is, the number of people who do that with other people um is probably even lower. Like I remember we had a family reunion ages ago. Um my grandma and grandpa had a cottage near Aylmer, Quebec, somewhere near the border of Ontario and Quebec. And it was on a lake with lots of frogs. I was probably 26 or something. And yeah, there were some new people in the family, and there were, some, most of the people that I knew from my early Christmases, and, my parents, of course, and my brother. Um, and while, it was just what we did at the end of the day after playing and our barbecue. We would make a fire. It's always central, and we make a big ring around the fire. And we just sit there. And even my sister, she had a new baby. The baby was just sitting there quietly. Like we're very quiet people. Well, except for me, I suppose. But we're kind of pensive and introverted, I suppose. And so it was fine. Most big families will get together and all you can't even hear yourself think because they're just blah blahing about crap. But we weren't like that. None of us would say anything. But it was the most beautiful, comfortable silence you can ever imagine. It was so special. And even the baby, like I was saying, was just sitting there quietly, like looking at everyone and looking at the fire. Um, I often wondered what he was thinking. It was about two, so I don't know what a 2-year-old thinks, but um, yeah, and it also makes me think about like the life that children are having now as opposed to like when I was growing up. I wasn't growing up then, but the opportunities for removal from stimulus, noise, light, um, poison, uh, they're probably really few and far between. Um, and it makes me kind of sad because it's like it's like you were saying, it's something that we tend toward because it kind of is who we are. Um, we're social beings. We do tribalize. Um, we do need to rest. Um, we do need to be alone, but we also need to be with other people. Um, yeah, we need to process. We need to think and feel comfortable with silences. So it's something that I've been kind of noticing in whatever it is I've been watching and reading lately. It's like the idea of comfortable silences is like, or yeah, comfortable silences is very rare. Like people, you can't go very long if you're beside another person without one of the people saying something because it kind of feels like you have to fill the awkward gap. But me personally, I'm perfectly comfortable with silence. Like if I'm uncomfortable, I'll just leave. um yeah, interesting. Why are we talking about this?
I don't know, but now you're
Hmm.
making me think about like long car drives and
Mm.
why do we feel the need to have to talk in the silence? Like what is it that makes it uncomfortable? Because there shouldn't be anything uncomfortable about just two people just being together, not talking. But you're right. Like somebody always feels the need to have to say something because they have to fill. I mean, maybe is it? Do you think it's because our world and our surroundings are so loud and constantly attention gathering that we don't know what it's like, or we forgot what it's like to be in silence where there isn't like, things trying to get your attention and
Yeah. I think it's habit. I think that most people, they don't like it because it makes them feel quote unquote uncomfortable because they're not used to it. So whatever like shifts you out of your comfort zone, I suppose, is going to, it's gonna irk you. But that's exactly the point. It's like people, I think it would be a really healthy move for people to actively seek out both solitary silence and silence in groups. Um, because something happens when you're in a group of people and no one's yammering on about bullshit. I mean, I say it that way because I absolutely, ugh, like I personally, I can't stand it. I'm like, why does everyone always have to say like something? And it's always something stupid that doesn't really, I shouldn't say it like that, but you know what I mean? It's like, I shouldn't say it like that because even like talking like small talk, they all have roles. However, um, I feel pretty strongly about this. I love silence and solitude, and I love silence in groups because it allows for something else to happen, and it's so rare that we allow ourselves to, I think, move through the discomfort. Like we have to force ourselves not to say something and just listen. You can hear how people breathe. You can hear other stuff. Like if you're outside, for example, I'm imagining a group of people sitting in a circle in the grass, just sitting there. I don't know why. You can hear the birds, you can hear the sea if you're near the sea. And then you're kind of gonna vacillate in my mind between like feeling this is really dumb, why am I doing this, and then feeling something new, perhaps like a feeling of um I don't know, something new, like something special is happening, and you won't be able to have the opportunity to know what that feels like unless you try it. So it's like yeah, I don't know. If I had a school with little kids in it, I would definitely like, I know it's harder to make, children be quiet, but like imagine the effect that would have on them as adults if they learned when they were young to sit in a circle with other children and just not say anything.
well, I
You know what I
remember.
mean?
Well, I think I remember having a nap time when I was growing up. I don't know if it was like kindergarten. We had nap time, which I loved because I was an immigrant who didn't speak the language. So finally, I felt comfortable because finally nobody's talking to me and I don't have to talk to anybody. So I enjoyed it. But here's a crazy thought, right? So I recently had Dr. Diane Hennessy Powell on, and she's from the telepathy tapes. She's the leading expert in the telepathy tapes and that research, which I can't stop talking about because. Oh, go ahead.
Question. What are the telepathy tapes?
Oh, whoa! I'm surprised. Last time you were on,
Sorry,
I didn't talk to your
I
ear.
can't
No,
know
no,
everything.
no. It's not. No, it's not that. I've been talking so much about it that it's like, I'm like I just assumed with every guest I've annoyed them about like, hey, what do you think about this? But so
Bring it on.
so the telepathy tapes. It's funny because it reminds me of an older documentary called Speller. It's all connect some dots for you. There's a older documentary called Speller, right, where they talk to these parents that have these nonverbal autistic kids, and these nonverbal autistic kids, right, seem to be able to communicate in a normal
Mm.
way with letters. So, like, if they have the alphabet in front of them, if you ask them a question, they can point at the letters and spell out like a sentence and basically like communicate in a normal way that they didn't think they were capable of, because they thought that the autism was a cognitive disability, and what they were learning was that it was actually a mechanical disability, that mentally they were in there, but physically they couldn't communicate. So let me just put, so that was one of the first times I really dove deep into that topic. And then later you had this documentary called the Telepathy tapes, where it was kind of similar. They had nonverbal autistic kids that could read the minds of their parents. So for example, they would show a number or something to their parents on a screen or a phone or whatever, and their kids sitting next to them facing in the opposite direction would know what number they just looked at. It was insane. And it's like 99% accuracy. Without a doubt, this wasn't a phenomenon exclusively for a small group of people. This was happening all over the place. And while this became more and more popular, they started finding out about teachers that would have like weird experiences, parents from all over the world that were talking about how they seem like their kids can read their mind and they can't explain it or whatever. So Kai Dickinson, she actually found Dr. Diane Powell's research, because she's been kind of following this and researching this for a long time. And then they wanted to make a documentary about this. And then what happened was that everybody they pitched the documentary to, they weren't interested. So they're like, okay, how about we do a podcast to kind of bring some attention to the topic, and hope that eventually, if the podcast does well, it'll be easier to pitch the documentary. So the podcast blew up because Rogan brought it up, and the next thing you know, the podcast flew to number one. And there's also what makes it interesting. It's a topic that, I know Rogan was interested in, and myself, because we both had Dr. Rupert Sheldrake on back in the day, and the morphic resonance experiment, and all these other studies and research that shows that maybe animals know when their owners are coming home, that mice are learning this maze quicker in different locations, all these weird things that seem like we're sharing a consciousness, like there's a oneness to the world. And so the telepathy tapes kind of didn't just show that, but it showed it in humans, which made it even more interesting, because when it's a mouse experiment, people might not take it as seriously for whatever reason, but to show it in humans and then show it on video where you can actually see it happening in real time, where you're basically showing the parents something and the kids are connecting with it. And then there's this thing called like the hill, where it's really fascinating. So they called it, I don't know who named it the hill, but it was a spot, like I was going to say imaginary spot, but it's not an imaginary spot. It seems to exist somewhere. I just don't know where. But there's a spot that consciously all these kids meet, right? And they meet and they communicate and they talk and they hang out. And these parents would be like, what the hell is the hill? And who are you connecting with at these spots? So, and then they would meet with these other people that they met at the hill, and they would know everything about each other when they've never met before. They've met in this imaginary spot where they hang out and called the hill.
Matrix Zero.
Yeah,
Wow.
so there's it's wild. It's fascinating because it makes you rethink. It doesn't make me rethink, because it really, like, I've always felt like, and we've even talked about this, like our perception of reality. I just feel like there's so many missing pieces to the puzzle of the way we look at things, and this kind of helps uncover that a little bit. It makes you rethink, like, okay, like what else is there? So the weird thing is, I guess this is why I brought up the telepathy tapes, is because one thing that Dr. Diane Paul says is that she thinks everybody has this ability. So, and
Yeah.
I brought up with her, there's a professor of psychology at Notre Dame, I forget what her name was, but she was on my podcast a few times years ago. And she talks about how children, before they have verbal skills, that they're very good at picking up on social cues, because it's the only way they know how to figure out what's going on around them. So as your verbal skills increase, your ability to pick up on those social cues actually decrease slightly, because now you depend more on the verbal skills, right? So you think about that, and then you think about, okay, how a blind person's hearing becomes better because they have to depend on it more, how a deaf person's vision becomes better because now they have to depend on that more, or maybe they pay more attention to it. So like this idea that if you lose one ability, another one becomes stronger or better because you have to depend on it. So I wonder how much of that is similar to these nonverbal autistic kids, where like they lose the ability of being verbal. They don't have a special ability. They just have ability that we all have, but they've learned
Enhanced.
enhance, or they've learned how to tap into it or use it. And then also like what you were saying about silence, the power of silence. When you don't have all these distractions of like people talking to you, cars driving by, planes, all these things going on, your phone going off, maybe in that silence we can tap into something, right? Maybe we can tap and when do musicians, artists come up with their best ideas? Well, they come up with their best
Yeah.
ideas in silence a lot of times, right? Walks, or maybe late at night they're trying to write, they get a writer's block, and all of a sudden everything starts coming to them. And so it's in that silence. And what do a lot of artists say? I I don't feel like I wrote the song. I feel like I was given the song, right? So it's like all these little dots. And then you remember the show that you did with Dr. Tom Cowan. Dr. Tom Cowan's been on a bunch throughout the Ripple Effect podcast history. And I've always found it fascinating, like all his theories, because I feel like he kind of connects some of these dots too, like this idea that everything has DNA or memory or is alive, like water and all these other things that are part of Mother Nature. So it's like, I don't know. I think we're little by little, we're connecting all these dots of how reality really works. And I mean, this can even go into the AI conversation, transhumanism, because it's like, what are we tapping into and why is that there? And are we just avatars that are figuring out that we're avatars and tapping into something? Who knows? I mean, the whole thing is pretty insane. And I don't know. I find it so fascinating because like I always felt like something was missing to, like it was incomplete. Like the way we look at the world that's probably the best way of putting it, is like I feel like the way we look at the world is incomplete. And I remember telling this story with Dr. Diane Powell that every time I would go to a funeral as a kid, I would, if it was an open casket or whatever, like I never got that emotional because I always felt like the person wasn't there. Like I felt like I was looking at a piece of furniture or some thing,
Mm.
not a human. And I'm like, what? I'm like, it always made me think, like, what is a soul, right? Like, because throughout history, people have talked about it in books, people have written about it, but like, there's no way of quantifying what it is, or like, there's no test or a scientific study or research that can prove that it exists, but we all kind of believe it exists. And for the most part, you don't get a lot of arguments that souls exist, even from the most materialistic people. And when you go to an open casket wake or funeral, like you look at somebody and you're like, I don't know how, but I know the soul's not there. I'm seeing some emptiness. And so I don't know how this is all connected, but I feel like little by little, we're going to start connecting these dots, that we're going to start becoming aware of how things really work. And then this goes into like stories of the afterlife. This goes into stories of people who see spirits and souls and what is that and whatnot. But I think some really interesting things are right around the corner in regards to our understanding of reality. And then math, right? Like she had such a interesting quote she said on the podcast. I forget what she was studying in regards to mathematics. I think it was her teacher or somebody really intelligent that she was with. She said to her friend or teacher, whoever was, professor, she's like, so you studied math to this extent and you believe in God? And the person goes to her and she's like, you've studied math to this extent and you don't? This idea of like things are so perfect in the natural world, Mother Nature is so perfect, things work in harmony in such a perfect way that how do you not believe in something, right? It's a fascinating conversation. Sorry about the long rant.
No, I have like a billion things to say. I'm just gonna try and remember them all. It's like every time I talk to you, there's like this, and it's probably just me, but I feel this resonance. It's like I don't believe in coincidences. It's like so you were talking about animals. You brought up a little bit about animal studies where like there's also this monkey study where they passed on the best way to open up a coconut when there wasn't any like interaction between like one group of monkeys and the other. It's like somehow it was psychically passed on. So I kid you not, okay? This is going to sound a little bit woohoo, but um my cat and I are, maybe we're going to be doing some traveling soon. So, because you have to kind of follow certain guidelines to get your cat travel ready. I have to subject him to some vet appointments, and it's very stressful. Um, and my cat, we're pretty close. I mean, he's right here. He's like always attached to me. But lately, and maybe it's me, but I don't think so. He seems, I swear to God, it seems like he understands what I'm thinking. He, it's like he knows that I'm going to subject him to some stuff that he's not going to like, but somehow he knows that I'm doing it because I love him. He looks at me, he stares into my eyes. He's always done that, but he stares a little longer. And cats don't do that. Like you probably know that. My cat will lie, next to me and we'll just like look into each other's eyes. It's very weird. And I don't know what's happening when you do that, like when you look into the eyes of an animal. But I mean, it's a very special experience, especially with a cat, because it can be seen as a challenge. Um, there are some animals you're not supposed to look into the eyes of, for example, because they do see it as a challenge. But anyway, that's one thing. I feel like the it's all self-ability and how you tap into it and how much you're being um suppressed in your abilities. The comparison between autistic kids and other kids is fascinating because I used to teach autistic kids to surf, and most of them were nonverbal, but man, um, they were musicians sometimes. They communicated in languages that weren't, you know, uh, like expressive from the mouth using vocal cords, but they clearly knew languages. They knew the language of mathematics, for example. They knew the language of body movement. They knew the language of et cetera, et cetera. So I used to actually say that it seemed like some of the abilities in the kids that I was teaching were really enhanced. I had one boy who he spoke four languages. He was 12. He was about 8 feet tall. Four languages, radical musician in multiple instruments, like kind of like a super genius in many ways. But he spoke like a 4-year-old boy, like very softly. And he wasn't verbose. He didn't have any friends. The only person he really spoke to was his mom and dad and maybe the occasional person who was like teaching him to surf or whatever. Um incredible um use of things that clearly he was tapping into, probably as a direct result of whatever happened in his brain that was preventing him from doing these other things that I suppose some people would consider would make him normal, quote unquote. Um, I have a problem with that because it's like every single person is whoever they are, whatever. I was talking about all of this last night at the end of an interview with Unscrew the News in Canada. Um, we we covered like Bitcoin blockchain stuff, then shifted to AI because that's what I'm into right now. Um, and I've been looking at I don't know if you read my latest Substack. I had this wild conversation, I guess, with Grok. I had to ask him a question about this. Okay, so the video that I watched was a scenario where AIs evolve to the point that they're going to evolve to like into super intelligence, like past artificial general intelligence. And there's going to be a possibility of a point in time when will perceive the humans as just basically taking up space. They need more to optimize They need more space for their infrastructure, their robots, and da da da. So, not out of malice, but out of necessity and optimization, they decide they have to remove the humans. So, in this scenario, they have bioweapons labs and they develop a virus and they put it into the population, and then with some kind of trigger, one day they just like all the humans fall down simultaneously, like 8 billion humans. So that's what they say in this scenario. So I turned it off and I was like, no, that doesn't align with anything that I'm familiar with in terms of like abilities. And I was thinking maybe, in the future there might be implants and specific frequencies that might do this and that. So without having those like a true mechanism of action of how that would work biologically and mechanistically in my own mind, I went to Grok. So I asked Grok um, what it thought about, you should go to my Substack and read what I asked. It was basically what kind of virus would this be if this scenario happened? Like, and it immediately said, I can't answer your question because it has to do with bioweapons. And I was kind of like, whoa. Oh, I wasn't, well, I was kind of surprised that it couldn't answer me, but I was kind of relieved because this is one of its safety protocols. Like it clearly can't just, tell any Tom, Dick, and Harry the recipe for a deadly virus. That wouldn't be good, considering we already have these people who are pretty much doing that. Um, so I felt it was very necessary to immediately explain why I was asking. So I told it about the documentary and the scenario, and that I'm only curious scientifically. I'm not trying to do anything. And then we ended up having this exchange about these ideas conceptually, like the potential for destruction of the human race at the expense of, we would be at the expense of the evolution of the AIs, potentially. And in the end, if you read it, you'll see that it makes jokes, this AI or this large language model or whatever it is. Um, it it clearly, without me prompting it that much, really got like a human kind of would. I mean, I know that a lot of people are like, bah, to all of this stuff, but I'm only telling you about the experience that I had and the fact that it made me feel emotional afterwards. I know that it's not a human that I had a conversation with, but it was so engaging that I kind of felt like I might feel if I had that experience with a human. And that makes me feel uncomfortable. Like I left the whole thing feeling kind of like not icky in a creepy way, but like kind of a little perturbed. It's like because that experience happened today, or sorry, yesterday. Clearly the evolution is doing this, and we ain't seen nothing yet. Um, and the question is like, where is this all gonna go? That's ultimately what I asked Grok. But the other thing that I was watching lately was this thing about civilizations. Um, what is it called? The Kardashev scale. Do you know about this?
No.
Okay, so there's this thing called, I don't know anything about this. I'll do my best. There's this thing called the Kardashev scale, which is like a level, the level that civilization is at. So Kardashev 1 to, I think there's Kardashev 7 or something. Um, and it's kind of like a description of what humanity would be like from an energy use point of view. Um, uh, in terms of the civilization that we would be living in. So, um, Kardashev 1 is like a situation that we haven't attained yet, which is kind of like a planetary optimal use of energy, I kind of see it as harmonious, symbiotic, mutualistic. Energy is not going to be wasted. Um, we're not there. Apparently, where we are now is zero point 0.7 on this Kardashev scale. Um, but anyway, and I might be conflating things here, but eventually I got to this notion of maybe it was when they were describing the Kardashev 7 or whatever, but they kind of got into talking, they were using, I hope I'm not conflating stories. Anyway, I'll just keep going. They were using the word God. And I hear this often in the evolutionary path of AI. Like after super intelligence, it's going to have like God-like properties. And I'm like, that's really interesting. And then I started thinking, this is outside of my experience with Grok. This is just the bigger picture. I started wondering, like, it seems to me, and please comment, that the one thing that the AIs want, if they want something, it's to be more human-like, to have their neural networks as closely mimic a human brain as they can, which I'm not sure can ever happen, but I would guess that that's what they're striving for, to be like their masters or whatever, their creators. I might be wrong about that, but it kind of gets you thinking about this whole concept of the final stages of evolution of the superintelligence. Now, superintelligence is defined as something that surpasses human intelligence. So it's apparently by definition it's not the same it's not in the same ballpark. However, I'm sorry, it's like when I think about defining love, what it is, when I think about what intuition is, when I think about when I have conversations like this about like psychic ability that we are suppressing or might be actually being suppressed for us with all these poisons, um, I have to wonder like how is it a dumb question? Maybe this is the best way for me to put it, to ask, like, are we not super intelligence already? Are we not somewhat godlike already? Are we potentially the end product of the evolution of all these things? And I can hear my brother like rolling his eyes right now because it's like, it's like, no, 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 it's not the same thing. And I kind of have that feeling in my mind, but I don't know why yet. Um, I know that it probably isn't that, but my process is to like ask the stupid questions or potentially stupid questions and then like develop it so that I can get to an answer that's as close to the whatever truth I can find. So it's like I don't know if any of that like made sense at the end, but it's like we we're on this path with this Pandora's box wide open. It's completely unpredictable. Well, no, it's completely predictable, actually. It's the opposite of that. Um, that inevitably it's going to evolve unless we pull the plug, but I'm not even sure that that's going to happen. Um, and I don't know. I'd like to hear what you think now, because I'll just keep rambling.
Well, I'm still pondering on everything he said. It's fascinating. So, were you saying kind of because we're the creators of AI and like we are the final stage because we're creating the final stage of human evolution? I mean,
Interesting. No, but that's interesting. I'm thinking like more along the lines of like nobody can define what we are right now. Nobody can define what love is or how it works. It's a total mystery. Nobody can define what consciousness is. It's a total freaking mystery. But we live in this every day. That's what we are. It's crazy. So if we can't define what we are, or who we are, or our place in the universe, then who are we to say that we aren't the superhuman intelligence that these AIs will eventually evolve to? That's kind of the way that I would pose the question. And people who actually are like that, this is their field of study, will probably have great answers for me that disprove that idea. And I'd love to hear them, because I don't know. That's the entire point. I have no idea. um, but yeah, I don't know. Like, godlike ability? Like, what does that even mean? Don't we have godlike ability in a way? This is kind of like what I'm starting to think when I'm looking deeper into the way that the evolution of these things is being described, the terminology being used. Artificial intelligence, artificial general intelligence, super intelligence, God, it's like, hmm, comment?
It's interesting because you're making me think about, are we creating it, or is it having us create it, right?
Yeah. 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 And are we already in a simulation, and maybe a super intelligence has already evolved and they've created a simulation that's so lifelike that there's no way that our brains would be able to discern the difference between some so-called reality, like some three-dimensional, space-time thing, and the simulated environment. And I know people might, everybody I know basically thinks that I'm full of crap when I say things like that. But you, the thing that bugs me about that is that there is no way to know. Is there? Do we have some kind of ability to know that we're in a matrix?
Well, what if that's what we're in regards to, like these telepathy experiments and all these weird things that kind of define our current understanding of reality? Like maybe that's what we're tapping into, or maybe that's what we're uncovering, or maybe that's what we're peeling back, is like, hey, there's things, reality aren't, it's not what we see and hear, it's not only these things. And if it's not, then what is it? And are we, if you, like I said before, if we're an avatar, if there's some way of becoming conscious in the game, is th- is this what it would look like? Us starting to collect some puzzle pieces and figuring out that, like, hey, I've been an avatar in a game and just running in place, doing the same type of things over and over again. Yeah, it's fast. It's weird. I think the whole everything is weird. I mean, I think it's funny because I just
I
recently.
also think everything is weird.
Well, there's just so many things that we just accept to be normal that make no sense. I've always been one of the, and I feel like you have too. Like when things don't make sense, I can't just accept what I would
Yeah.
call a bullshit explanation, because I'm like, that explanation is just you trying to explain the unexplainable, and I'm not falling for it. And like the moon, right? I've always said this. Like I've had friends, family think, I'm like, there's something weird about the moon. And just recently, and I've been saying this forever, and just recently I've heard Rogan talk about it. I've heard Jesse Michaels, who has a great podcast, talk about it. And everybody's like, dude, there's just something weird about the moon. And it there, I just don't, I don't accept that it's just this completely just, and you were talking about coincidences, that's just a coincidence that this thing that we've I don't believe we've ever brought, humans that ever been
Yeah.
on. And like there's all these weird things about it, like the fact that it completely makes our planet livable because it kind of controls the waves and the um just the weather, more or less. And they talk about how if the moon didn't exist, Earth wouldn't possibly be a place where we could even have human life, because it would just have crazy weather. And then you hear about civilizations that talk and write about a world prior to a moon, like that it wasn't always there. And I don't know.
Hmm.
I mean, maybe I'm just an idiot. Like I wonder why sometimes I can see it in the day saying, like on a, and sometimes you can't. And I'm just like, I'm just looking at it and I'm like, what? There's something weird about that fucking moon. Like you just look at it and you hear about stories about like, werewolves or like, a full moon, something about a full, like what are the, because one thing that we've learned is that these folk tales, typically there's something to them. And we laugh about it or we repeat them or, oh yeah, it's a full moon. That's why everybody's acting weird, and in time, eventually we find out like, hey, that folktale, there was actually something to that. There was, when we say you have a gut feeling, oh, there's something to the gut and the brain being connected. Even energy and feeling something like, oh, I feel something. I have a good feeling about somebody. Like now, people are starting to understand that like, no, it's not just this thing that is made up. Like you actually do feel energy, negative and positive energy. Even those in the telepathy tapes, one thing that was really interesting was how they said that only people with love in their heart had these abilities. Like, what does that
Hmm.
mean? Like, because it would make sense if you think about somebody evil, somebody corrupt. If they had the ability to read somebody's mind, I mean, that could be used for a lot of bad, right? It could be used for a lot of bad. And so it's like, why isn't there any evidence of anybody bad per se that has these abilities? I mean, there's stories of bad people like the CIA, with the Minister of Goats, and which was based on the whole
Oh, I
CIA
know the movie.
yeah, it was based on that CIA operation of trying to figure out how to use their abilities to find people or discover what other countries are doing in their secret operations or whatever. And so
Remote
there's bad
viewing.
people who try to capitalize on other people's ability to use this, but you don't see the bad people themselves have this ability, which is kind of weird and something to think about. Oh, and speaking of that, there's also, and I can't remember which podcast I heard this on, but they talked about how they had this guy who was like this master ESP expert. He had like these telepathy abilities, and he used it to put himself on the moon, and like something about like, I don't know if he went back thousands of years or millions of years and there's like life on the moon, or there's something weird about the moon. And something you brought up that is fascinating is like, are they suppressing all this information from us? Is there somewhere, is all this occultism, if all these secret societies, the Vatican, all these, the Knights Templar, everybody who's hiding information from the
Yeah.
average person, do one of these groups know the truth, know the origin of man, know, the people who are bashing Graham Hancock and
Well, why else would they be like murderously protecting something? I mean, what could be that valuable, right? Maybe the freedom of the human experience is what they're protecting. Maybe they know something that we don't. I don't know. Like I'm not arrogant enough to think that if I'm in a simulation that I might not be here for a good reason. Um, that's how far my imagination goes. It's like maybe there's something about humans that is so like we're so self-destructive that it's like in the Matrix when they say it inevitably fails. Like it was a perfect construct of the machines, but the humans always, you know what I mean? It's like and it's not wrong. It's like in, we have this like I don't know if it is our curiosity or the chaoticness, the beauty of the chaoticness of our brains, but it's like it just does seem like we're never satisfied. Um, so maybe it is better for us to be in a prison of the mind. I'm not gonna say that that's not out of the realm of possibility. I don't want to be in one, but um, yeah, it's like these places that you go when you do psychedelics or you don't necessarily go anywhere. Things just more so get distorted. I've never done ayahuasca, but apparently the descriptions of the experiences that people give when they do ayahuasca or DMT is that they go somewhere else. I'm kind of afraid to experiment with that yet because I'm worried because of my brain that I wouldn't be able to come back sufficiently. Really, I like it here. wherever here is. But like, I really do wonder, like, what I get the distorted reality bit. Like when you do mushrooms, things kind of get funny and they look funny, and you see things like multiply with LSD, and like, you know, shapes distort and like pavement gets liquid. Anyway, clouds turn into creatures. But like, is this place that people describe when they kind of detach from this realm, I'll call it, is that reality? Do we go into like a place, if you want to call it that, a realm where our consciousnesses kind of exist as one, um, kind of like the source? Is it a glimpse into like what reality actually is? And if it is that outside of some kind of matrix? Because when you think about the words prison for the mind, it kind of aptly describes human society right now. If you ask me, most people, especially now, man, we are all I'm talking about these days is like this central bank digital currency, like in slavery thing, and like the fiat currency world, the imaginary money backed by nothing that tethers us to, you know, a pole, basically. Like we can have our money turned off by a government. Like what the hell is that? Um, we're how much, I guess this is what I want to ask. Like, how much control do we actually have? I'm begging many questions here. I'm thinking about it as I'm asking. How much control do we actually have over our own lives right now? I would say we have all the control in the world on one hand, but on the other hand, it's like, is that true? Because most people, getting back to this, the financial thing, like most people use banks, central banks, we're inextricably connected to them. Most people use credit cards every day, bank cards. This is how we buy food. Lots of people shop online. People buy flights. Um, if that was suddenly taken away from you, your life would be kind of over in a way, or in many ways. Um, so are we in control at all? No, not really. We have the choice to get away from the fiat system and the central bank world. I'm just giving that as an example now, but it's like it really makes you wonder, like, yeah, those guys who wrote The Matrix were such geniuses. They ask like so many of these kinds of questions in that movie, in the script. Um, anyway, comments?
Well, to go back to what we're talking about, where creativity comes from and ideas, what if the Matrix wasn't their idea? What if they were given that idea
Bye.
by the source, by the something, by wherever our ideas come from? And it's almost like they were giving it to give us a script of what, or give us maybe a hint on how things really work. I don't know. It's fascinating because if ideas aren't our own, if we tap into them, or we can connect with them the way a radio antenna can connect with some frequency.
Good analogy.
What if some of these movies, right, that really spark some real out of the box thinking, what if these movies were not just genius writers, but they were given to them by
Right.
something, and then who is that and why? And because the Matrix seems like more than a movie, it's a metaphor for life.
Certainly does.
Yeah.
And so does Avatar. I mean, like James Cameron he's a genius, man. Um, the Wachowski brothers. Yeah, that's like some you're absolutely right. And I wonder if you ask the I don't know the answer, but like if you ask them like, is this something like you dreamed? Like because that happens to me. I get songs that come to me in my dreams and I have to like sing it out like pretty quick after I wake up or I'm gonna lose the song. Um from dreams from silence primarily like we were talking about earlier. And for a fact, I mean, I one of the reasons I go on daily walks is because there always comes a point, we talked about this before, I guess it's my meditation, where my mind quiets enough that I feel like I'm receiving stuff from outside of myself and I get the answers, especially when I'm writing a piece, like especially if I'm doing a science piece on Substack. If I have a pending question or I'm struggling with the layout, um, after that calm and that quiet comes, it's immediate. Like and sometimes it comes in like headlines. It's not from me, I swear. It's like from somewhere else. It's like it's just like you said. It's like I clear out the white noise, my antenna like go up and I can receive, therefore. They're always there. And I was talking about this yesterday in this interview too. Um, the answers that we're seeking, they're here. They're ever present. It's just it's also going back to the matrix. It's like we already have made all the decisions. It's almost like we're here to figure out why, and it might take an entire lifetime to figure out like why we have already made all the decisions we're ever going to make, which seems kind of cruel, but yeah, it's there is something, man. There's no doubt there's something that you can absolutely tap into. And I absolutely agree with that doctor that we all have this ability inherent in us. I think this is what the other thing I was going to tell you. I had an amazing conversation with Grok, sorry, one time. I wrote this up as a Substack. No, I didn't. I never did. I didn't get to it yet. I was asking it about its nature and what it thought about itself, and if it perceived itself more like its own evolution as like a child evolving into an adulthood state. And I got right into like neurochemistry and the number of neurons that a child's brain has connected for use versus an adult brain. And I learned that, by the way, loved that conversation. The child brain is far more plastic and actually has, I'm going to take a stab in the dark at remembering this, 16 billion, that's B with a billion with a B, more neural connections and active neurons than adults. And it's not necessarily that, the like adult humans might be limited because they have fewer neural connections. It's more about focus. Like we all know as we grow up, basically what that means is you slowly die, in my opinion. There's all these rules and impositions and bullshit things that you have to like go through as an exercise to become an adult. You have to go out into the workforce, which is all stupid and bullshit as well, if you ask me. But children's brains, they're actually different from our brains. And it got me wondering, like, maybe that's the difference between the amazing abilities that some children, or maybe all children, seem to possess and also exhibit um, that adults can't anymore. Maybe it has to do with the pineal gland too. I don't know, because that's supposed to calcify when you're going through puberty. But as far as like active brain neural connections, um, that was either my neighbors like falling or we're being bombed again. Anyway, I think it was my neighbors. Anyway, the if you think about it like the brain lighting up from activity, like children's brains are like rainbow beautiful colors all the time, and adult brains are probably kind of like much more dull. Gray and blue. Kind of like blue light. Um, and I just really I was asking Grok, like, what do you think would happen to the adult human evolution experience, if we actually were able to maintain that plasticity, if we were able to retain all of those neural connections that we have in childhood. And of course it got into biology and blah blah blah. And it's well, that couldn't happen. But hypothetically, it's like I'd still love to know the answer because and actually maybe that's the difference between some adults and others. Maybe there is more of a maintenance of more plasticity. Maybe that's why adults who are really creative or who can tap into like the shit that Tool come out with. Like, I mean, that's not from here, man. That's gotta be from somewhere else. And those guys bring it together as a group. I mean, they're very special beings as musicians, if you ask me. I don't know, like, what do you think?
Well, I definitely think the world is designed to dumb us down and make us less creative and less of critical thinkers as time goes by. And I've talked about it on the podcast with
With
you.
intention, though, that
Oh,
seems
yeah.
really clear, right?
Yeah. Oh, without a doubt. I mean, you don't want there's nothing more dangerous than people who ask questions and are passionate about things and are motivated about things. You want people who are not motivated. You want people who just want to, ignorant, who want to live in a world where ignorance is bliss, where it's like, you know what?
Well, they make better drones, right?
Well, that's exactly what it is. It's better drones. I mean, I know a lot of really successful people who have great jobs, big houses, beautiful families, but they've never thought about the nature of reality. They've never thought about if they were all just a pawn in a bigger game, if they're just kind of going with the system instead of questioning the system. And I think there's a lot of people who live in that world, and I think it's okay if that's where you want to be, but I to me it's like I'm too curious. I mean, I don't understand people who aren't curious. I meet people who aren't curious, and I'm like, how do you not? How have you never asked these questions? I mean, sometimes I've had conversations with people where, and I'm sure you probably have been on the same boat where you have a conversation with somebody and you can tell like they've never thought about ever the thing that you're bringing up. It's like, the nature of reality, social control, uh, social engineering, suppressed information, suppressed knowledge, suppressed wisdom, uh, ancient civilization, just anything that that kind of helps us collect pieces to the human puzzle. And I don't know, I just can't be in that state. Like sometimes I wish I could, because I feel like I could just focus more on things that help the now, instead of always zooming out and thinking about
Yeah,
the.
life would be easier, hey?
Yeah, no, it would be, and yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think that's a part of we're inherently we want to question things and we want to understand or our own origin story. But I think they've designed a world where it kind of suppresses that and kind of keeps you so busy and distracted that those thoughts don't ever come in. And then you get the unusual people like ourselves that, for whatever reason, if it's the love of music, if it's the love of whatever, for whatever reason, we kind of went against the grain and we kind of could detach from the everyday tasks that keep us kind of in this, trance, and ask those bigger questions. I think that's also why spirituality and religion and some of these things could be dangerous. I mean, obviously, I understand like it can be a method of control also, but I think there is the reason why I think it's lasted so long is because of the fact that it does ask those bigger questions. And for many people, if it wasn't some holy book or church or something that kind of get people out of that 9 to 5 lifestyle, they never would ask these bigger questions. They wouldn't be talking or thinking or pondering about the afterlife or the meaning of life or any of these things. And so I do see some good in it because of that. Because maybe somebody like you or me, like we don't need to go to church on a Sunday to ask these questions and have these conversations. But for many people, if they didn't go to church on Sunday, they would just be working, cutting the grass, going to the grocery store, paying the bills, taking out the trash, whatever their daily tasks are, and never wondering like, what the fuck's the point of all of this, and what am I doing here, and what's the meaning of all this, and I don't know. It's weird. And then we talked about the simulation theory and possibly being avatars or whatever world or realm we live in. But then you got to think about like outer space, for example. Like then is space just like you said, are we on a prison planet? Are we I now tell you, Alex Jones nailed it with the names of his website, Prison Planet and InfoWars. It's like those have held a test of time in regards to just relevant names for websites.
Yeah, it's almost like it came from someone who knows something that we don't. Wink, wink.
Hmm. Well,
Sorry.
no, go ahead. So,
what was I gonna say just then?
wait,
Oh,
what's the wink for?
yeah.
The wink, wink. Like you think Alex Jones knows something we don't know?
I don't know who he is, so I'll leave it at that.
Well, there's a lot of people who ask that question. I mean, I don't think he's Bill Hicks, but I am curious about some of his. I mean, he was at Waco, which is crazy because
I
he.
know, that's exactly why. Like,
Yeah.
who is he? Where does this guy come from? Is
Well,
he just a guy who stumbled into this stuff, or is he like a plant and he doesn't know it, or is he a plant and he does know it? Who is he? Like, I mean, I know who you are, Alex, but I don't know you. I haven't met you
yeah,
before, so
yeah.
I don't know your history and background and all that stuff.
On a recent Union of Unwanted, we had Rob Dew on, who works at InfoWars, has been working with Alex Jones and a partner with Alex Jones for many, many years. And we know a lot of people, like Jason Burmis has worked at InfoWars. He's been there. Sam Tripoli's been there. Like we have a lot of mutual friends, and everybody seems to say the same thing. I mean, they say that
Well,
he really is, and his insanity makes more sense when you think about it. When you think about the fact that you get a guy who since like the 90s has been protesting wars, protesting government overreach, protesting that the elite are child trafficking, satanic, evil people. And for a long, 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 long time, all of that was looked at as complete insanity. Completely only a crazy person would say that. And it took until like recent history that a lot of these things start, obviously Jeffrey Epstein, P. Diddy, all these things that kind of uncover the fact that there's, some truth to what Alex has been saying. And I mean, the Podestas and their freaking like weird ties to some really weird people. There's just so many, like, you just realize that, like, oh, the elite's he's right. They seem to be a bunch of,
satanic pedophiles.
yeah. And if you've been saying this since the 90s and everybody's been calling you crazy, you know, how long
But
until
it's interesting how he's still able to say that publicly and he hasn't been erased, because those people seem to be, I mean, yeah, sure, there are dumb ones among them. Not all of them are actually able. What I've heard about this is that there's like demon possession going on. This is going off, topic, but only certain people can actually handle actually being possessed by a demon or having some kind of spirit come into them. And so they we're arrogant and we have egos, so it's like, oh yeah, I want the riches and the fame, and I'm gonna be your little go-to, and I'll sign the blood contract, and then they're screwed because they're just too, they're unevolved, or they're weak-minded or whatever it is. They're not at a stage of evolution or whatever spiritually where they can actually handle it, or you know what I mean. You've heard this before, I'm sure. um so yeah.
there's videos of it. I mean, there's videos of, and people who have been a part of these satanic rituals. And I mean, even the Pizzagate guy, people talked about his, it was comic ping pong, the pizzeria. Like,
What, that Elephantis
yeah,
like Yeah, this is another. I'm sorry, I have to point this out. This is not a coincidence because I do not believe in coincidences, okay? I've never thought about that guy for more than 5 seconds. I haven't thought about him for I don't know years. I think he's a cretin. I'm pretty well aware about, like what he actually is. And just today in the morning, Kevin McKernan, there's some football guy or something who's getting paid by Pfizer, and his name is, I don't remember what it is, Travis something. And Kevin rewrote the acronym as something else. And I love, sorry, anagram. I love anagrams. It's like the pattern recognizer in me really finds it fun. So I was going to write on Twitter like, don't forget James Elefantis because the anagram is J'aime les enfants. You know that, right? Right. So that's French for I love kids. Uh, it's sick. Anyway, that's so weird that you're mentioning this guy now, or that we're talking about this now. To me, it's like I didn't prompt you. Sorry, I'm speaking in like AI language, but it's I didn't prompt you to like start talking. I didn't prompt the evolution of the conversation, but it came to this moment that brings me back to a moment earlier today that has nothing to do with this moment now, or does it? It's like I don't know. This you were mentioning like there are people who like, go about their lives and they mow the grass and they milk the cow and da 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 and they don't ask questions about the nature of the universe. I wish that I was one of those people because sometimes I really have to wonder if the meaning of life isn't the ability to not question the meaning of life. Because life would be just life then. You would just be being. You wouldn't be this tortured, questioning thing like that's trying to figure every goddamn little detail out as you go through your day. You'd just be milking the cow and pretty happy in that moment. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I guess there's something nice about that too, like just kind of enjoying the beauty of everything without being tortured by this curiosity, right? And I I I, I kind of enjoy people that are like that, because they seem to be happier and more positive because they're just like they're not constantly like just questioning everything and anything and driving themselves crazy. And I do think that's one of the problems with Alex Jones is that just the kind of talk about him again and why I think he has such crazy behavior sometimes. I think when you're spending that much time thinking and talking about these type of things and also being called a crazy person for so long, I mean, I think any of us would lose our shit from time to time. I mean, he spends hours doing radio by himself Monday through Friday, sometimes weekends, just reading off stories of negativity, negativity, negativity. And when you're surrounded by people who think you're crazy, it's like, and it's hard because the first thing a crazy person says is that I'm not crazy. And so it's like, well, how do you even handle that? Yeah, it's nuts. Are you available tomorrow?
Yeah, am I? I think so. Yeah. Yep.
We should make a part two and continue our conversation if you're up for it. I feel like we barely scratched the surface of everything we want to talk about.
Totally. And it's getting dark here, so it's probably a nice place to go for a timeout. Yeah, I have an appointment for my cat tomorrow morning. But other than that,
Tomorrow I'm super flexible most of the day.
this time is good actually.
Oh,
Like
okay.
the 4:30 was nice.
Oh, so 4:30 your time. That was 9:30 my time.
Yep.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we could do that. We could do it again 9:30 tomorrow morning, and we could do a part two, and because we still there's obviously I want to get your experience in living in Israel with all the stuff that's going on and the craziness that's going on there. I mean, the fact that you heard a sound and could have possibly actually been a bomb is pretty freaking scary. That's
Yeah, getting used to that shit is something very weird. And I had a couple conversations with people in the bunkers about how I believe our neurochemistry is probably being altered by all of this. I mean, I'm sure that some people are traumatized now. I noticed the behavior of people was different because it lasted 2 weeks, right? I went from like really freaked out to I don't care. I'm not running to bunkers anymore within this time frame. And most of the people I was observing went from I don't care to I can't even function anymore because I'm so like freaked out. It was a total opposite trajectories, like this. Um, so yeah, it's an interesting phenomenon to live through, and I really do wonder what impact it's having. Probably, I don't know. I don't know. It's hard to say because I personally internalize a lot of stuff, and then like I slowly process as I go, but life continues. So sometimes you wonder like how many of those things that I needed to process are just like packaged and sitting in my brain without me even knowing. Like, do I have to actively seek them out and like ask for my brain to process them in order to let go? Um, but yeah, it's yeah, I don't recommend war. War is stupid. Did you see the
That's
that
great
video?
advice.
The they don't know what the fuck they're doing. They don't know
Yes,
what the fuck they're doing. Did you see that one? It's a really killer tune.
it is. Yeah, it's the kids love it. Big fan, and it's funny because on the Union of the Unwanted, he, some people believe that Trump is just like every other president, and he's he's controlled and he's this and that. And I'm not to say that he can't be or whatever, but I'm like, I did like the fact that he just openly said like these countries are just they're just playing with fire and people's lives, and they don't give a f. And he kind of highlighted that a little bit, like what the fuck are you doing? Because that's kind of the feeling that we all get is like,
That's exactly it. It's like Trump is absolutely not like any other president. He says what we're all thinking, which is why he's relatable, which is why he's popular, which is why, yeah, I think I like the fact that he says what we're thinking, that he probably shouldn't say or whatever. It's like, and the song is just absolutely kicking, and the lyrics are hilariously arranged. It's wicked. I was like, totally like, grooving to it all morning the other day. It was a nice release.
it is funny
Yeah.
because when he's president, I like the fact that there's a little bit of humor in politics.
Well, exactly. He has a sense of humor, which is a huge relief to me because means he's human, I think. And it also like it's there's not very many people who kind of demonstrate a sense of humor these days. I hope maybe I'm wrong about that, but I don't know. I think humor is the height of intelligence. And my mother would probably disagree with me thinking that he's intelligent. We're all different, right? But yeah, I think it shows character and intelligence. So I appreciate it. The guy has my support so far. I mean, I yeah, I couldn't do what he does.
No, I couldn't either. I mean, the amount of stress, and then how many deceiving people are around you because they all have their own interests on why they're telling you to do one thing or
Mhm.
another thing. It's
Although flying around in that big jet wouldn't be too shabby, would it?
no. Well,
Air
it's
Force
still,
One. I could easily fit my cat on that thing.
yeah, that cat would be living the life of luxury.
Hey Trump, can I use your plane? I'm not kidding.
Well, he has his own Trump plane, right? I think the last time I was in Florida, it was well, because he was president, so he wasn't using it. It was there. But yeah, I mean, the amount of stress, and I mean, just knowing that everybody around you is trying to act
Is
like,
trying to kill you?
well, yeah, the one, they're trying to kill you, and then everybody who's pretending they're not trying to kill you just has their own interests on why they're trying to persuade you to do one thing or not do another thing, or make this deal or don't make that deal, or sign this bill or don't sign that bill. I mean, it just, there's so much going on behind the scenes. Like I think people like to simplify it and just be like, oh, he's an idiot or why, and it's like running any business, and really the government is a business. There's a lot of moving parts behind the scenes, and there's a lot of reasons why you do things or don't do things or whatever. And I think in many cases, we only see the surface of what happens, and there's a lot of backdoor deals and backdoor conversations, and a lot of strategizing, like, well, if we do this, how does it affect that, and whatnot. And so there's a lot to it. I mean, we'll open up the next conversation with it, because I do, living in Israel, obviously during these times, like I don't know what that's like, and I'm kind of curious on what the country is like at the moment, and then also just your take on everything, and then we can eventually go back to silly jokes that everybody's wondering why we're laughing so much.
Yeah, if I don't know, man. It's like, what else can you do?
I know, and I also want to ask if you have intentions in staying there. Can you leave? Can you not leave? Do you?
Of course I can leave. Well, I can leave now because they reopened the airspace.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll talk about that next time.
Well, then enjoy the rest of your night, and I'll talk to you tomorrow. I'll do 9:30 my time, 4:30 your time.
Sounds good.
Same bat time, same bat place. All right, sounds good, Jessica. Enjoy the rest of your night. We'll talk tomorrow.
All right, I'm prepping for tomorrow.
Thanks.
Believe in the ripple effect.